Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Wareham Veterans Council, I would like to thank you all for coming today to honor the veterans and the families of the veterans for their service and their sacrifices over the course of our nation's history. We'd like to have a special thank you to the Onset VFW for hosting this event, and the VFW Auxiliary for providing the luncheon afterwards. I would also like to thank the 1st of the 118th Infantry Regiment for a static display that is outside, a couple of Humvees, the Wareham Fire Department and the Wareham Police Department for providing vehicles as well. I would like to start today's ceremony, but before I get into that, I would also like to introduce two new members of the Wareham Veterans Council, Corporal Ryan Lanklois and Master Sergeant Jesse Walsh. If you could both stand and let's give them a round of applause. It is so nice to get some new men that joined the Wareham Veterans Council, and they're on the younger side, which is kind of nice, right? We're getting an infusion of young blood, and we really do appreciate your service to the veterans of Wareham and the town of Wareham itself. So thank you, gentlemen, very much for standing up and deciding to take part in a very worthy endeavor. I'd like to start off by asking the Honor Guard to post the colors from both the Wareham Minutemen and Militia Company and the Junior ROTC. So if we could all rise, please. Post the colors.
Attention!
And come in, shoulder your firelocks.
Carry column. Right column, march.
Forward, march.
Column left, march. March time, march.
All right, march.
Color, oh.
Okay,
Face.
please take your seats. I'd like to ask Mr. Benjamin Baptiste, the commander of the Dudley L. Brown VFW, post number 2846, to issue us a welcome. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. As you stated, I'm the commander for the VFW Post 2046, and on behalf of the post, I'd like to welcome all of you today. I'd like to put a special thanks out to the Wareham Veterans Council for putting this event together, and also like to welcome the Honor Guard. It's very important for the youth to be involved in our military for the successful future of our military. I'd also like to say this is a great moment to take pause. Let's just not pause on Veterans Day, but let's remember this every day. The sacrifices that our folks in the military have done for this country, have done for your freedom, and those that have fallen as a result of that. Let's never forget, and let's make this an everyday event and find time to do that. So again, appreciate you coming here, appreciate you participating in the event, and again, we're very honored.
Thank you, Ben. And now I'd like to call forward Mr. Erwin Russell, the chaplain and great supporter of veterans not only in Wareham but throughout the region for our opening prayer.
Attention.
Present. Up.
Present.
Shoulder your firelocks.
Uncover.
Then,
Please rise. Uncover. Almighty God, Father of us all, we are servants. Turn to you for continuance of your blessing upon us, who have spared us veterans from the grasp of our enemies. Grant us the full understanding of your precious comfort. We thank you for the privilege of life and the blessings we enjoy through your graciousness in our country, the land in which we are given the freedom of speech, religion, and the pursuit of happiness. Assist us to know you better and the wisdom to acknowledge you as the God of the universe and our ideal. In your mercy, may we, the living, find our peace. Grant us from above this day the challenge of high endeavors, the beauty of an humble spirit, the strong courage and will, without exertion, to continue to glorify you, to praise you, and to love you to the end of our time. Amen.
I'm going to ask you to rise in a second, okay? But we're going to ask Miss Evelyn Chase to come forward. She's the president of the Wareham High School Key Club, a fantastic student leader from Wareham High School. She's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Following that, we're going to ask Mr. Steve Ruiz to come forward and sing the national anthem. So if you could all please rise at this moment, and cadets and color guards, bring your units to present arms, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order, color.
Order, arm.
Come in, shoulder, your firearms.
Retreat the colors.
Left, face. Column right, march.
Wareham Company, right face. Column, march.
Mark time, march. Colors, halt. Order, colors.
Let's give them a round of applause, please. Please take your seats.
Call up.
One, parade, correct.
Order, march.
Okay, this time I would like to ask Mr. Alan Slavin, the Selectman for the Wareham Board of Selectmen, to read the Veterans Day Proclamation. Mr. Slavin?
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's important today to recognize the veterans, past, present, for what they've done for us all. I'm always kind of disappointed when we don't have a bigger turnout, but we keep pushing this forward. It's good to see you, Jim, also. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen of the Town of Wareham, proclamation is as follows. Whereas the 11th of November, 1918, marked the end of World War I and was commemorated starting in 1919 with a celebration known as Armistice Day. Whereas in 1954, Armistice Day was officially renamed Veterans Day in recognition of the intervening wars and conflicts fought valiantly by the American veterans, men and women on foreign soils, on the sea and in the air, to preserve our heritage of freedom. Whereas our great nation was founded in the belief that all Americans were created equal and that all Americans are granted the undeniable rights of life and the pursuit of happiness. Whereas the freedom as enjoyed as Americans does not come without a price. Our nation's veterans have sacrificed to preserve and protect our country and our Constitution from all enemies, foreign and domestic, with the hope for peace not only on the battlefield but around the globe. Whereas our nation's veterans have given willingly and unselfishly of themselves, and some giving their lives, serving with distinction in the defense of the democratic principles of this great nation. In the most demanding of circumstances, in the most dangerous corners of the earth. Whereas we pay tribute to our veterans, we are ever mindful that neither speech, nor ceremony, nor neither parade nor monument can repay the debt owed to these men and women who have worn many uniforms throughout the generations to safeguard the Republic with integrity, distinction, and dedication. Whereas we acknowledge that the cost of freedom continues even after all the guns have fallen silent. We acknowledge that many of our veterans, scarred mentally and physically, returned from war unheralded, especially I'll make a note of the Vietnam War. Without a grateful nation's thanks, we acknowledge that our debt to our veterans does not end the day their uniforms are retired, nor should our gratitude be expressed only one day a year. Whereas the greatest accomplishment of our freedom is to honor our armed force veterans who have sacrificed for that freedom. Now therefore, we, the Board of Selectmen, do proclaim November 11th, 2021 as Veterans Day, and we call upon all citizens to observe the moment of silence on November 11th, 2021 at 11 a.m. in remembrance of all our veterans who have fought to safeguard our heritage. Let us proudly and with dignity display the flag of the United States of America throughout our town of Wareham to honor our veterans and humbly give thanks. Let us reconcentrate ourselves to the task of promoting and enhancing peace so that our veterans' efforts shall not have been in vain. And basically, the selectman will be Mrs. Whiteside, the chair, Patriot will be our clerk, Jim Manise, Peter Teitelbaum, and myself, Alan Slavin. Thank you. I'll just ask for like a moment of silence for those veterans who are no longer with us and those who sacrificed their lives. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. On behalf of the Wareham Veterans Council, we really appreciate you and all of the work we have done with you.
Thank you.
So if you want two role models who are great Americans, and I'm mainly looking at our students, right? Mr. Alan Slavin and Mr. Skip Sarnelli. Alan, a selectman who's been a staunch advocate for veterans within our communities for so many years. And Mr. Skip Sarnelli, the head of the Wareham Veterans Council. Both individuals have devoted countless hours over the years to benefit us citizens. So we truly owe you both a great debt of gratitude for all you have done for us. So please join me in a round of applause. Okay, at this time, I would like to ask Mr. Julio Roderick forward. He's the quartermaster and the do-it-all man for Wareham. If there's a successful function in Wareham, you'll usually see Julio Roderick behind the scenes making it happen. And we couldn't be more grateful in the Veterans Council for his staunch advocacy, his participation, his great ideas, his energy. He really makes it happen, not only here at the VFW, but throughout the town. He's a voice of reason, a voice of calm. He has kept us sane over the years, and we truly appreciate it. So he is going to come forward and introduce our special guest of honor. Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to recognize a couple of people. Mary Ann Silva, President of our auxiliary. Sandra Slavin from the Conservation Committee. Our next speaker is Representative Susan Williams Gifford. She was elected to the Massachusetts State Representative in November of 2002, serving us in the 2nd Plymouth District, where she currently serves as Assistant Minority Whip and is the ranking Republican member of the House Committee on Steering, Policy, and Scheduling. Susan is a member of the Massachusetts Ocean Management Task Force and the Massachusetts Seafood Marketing Commission Steering Committee. A 22-year resident of Wareham alongside her husband Mark, she is a dedicated public servant, having also served as the Wareham Selectmen for 3 years. She's a local leader who's worked hard to address town needs. She is a member of the Onset Day Association and the Wareham Land Trust. And she's always been supporting us in these ceremonies. So please join me in welcoming Representative Susan Williams Gifford.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
First thing I'd like to say is thank you all for being here as we honor our veterans, all those who have served, and their families. First and foremost, let's begin today by recognizing those among us who have been a part of the great brotherhood and sisterhood we call the U.S. military. Our veterans, active duty service members, guardsmen, and reservists. Your service and sacrifice have kept our country safe and free. And if you are able, please stand so we can recognize you and thank you personally. Over a century ago, the DAV, then the Disabled American Veterans of the World War, was just starting its journey. The founder, World War I veteran Judge Robert Marks, was beginning to shape the mission that would affect the lives of countless veterans and their families for generations to come. He had witnessed how his fellow veterans fared after returning home from war, many seriously disabled and unable to find work or access to proper medical care. He saw how few resources existed to aid those who served so honorably in the nation's defense, and he vowed to bring about change. And indeed, he did. Judge Marks began to advocate for the men and women who risked all for the sake of this country, particularly those who were injured or became ill in the course of doing so. This year, as we mark Veterans Day and honor our nation's veterans and their selfless courage, we should take the time to celebrate Judge Marks and the legacy he left behind. For many veterans, the consequences of war are a daily experience. Likewise, for all of you here today. Here in Massachusetts House of Representatives, we want everyone who served to lead high-quality lives with respect and dignity. That is a mission that we live day in and day out. By joining veterans organizations and getting involved, we can connect with fellow veterans in a way that says we care and we won't ever forget your service. There are ways that all of us can support those who bear the physical, emotional, and psychological scars of war. It's important that we get to know them and ensure that they know that we are here for them, especially during this time of social distancing and isolation. Sometimes just sitting down to engage with veterans or their family members to talk can go a long way. They never gave up on us, and we can't give up on them. I am proud to be here today as we honor the men and women who have served our great country as members of all branches of our military. It's not just our servicemen and women, but their families as well. The Massachusetts legislature continues to work in a bipartisan manner to ensure that our veterans and their families have access to benefits and services that are second to none in the United States. I have said it before, and I will continue to say it, that we owe a debt of gratitude to all who have served that we can never repay, but we will never stop trying. God bless you all. God bless our veterans, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you all for being here.
Do we have Senator Pacheco come up here? Our next speaker is State Senator Mark Pacheco. Senator Pacheco is the Senate's longest continuous serving member and the Dean of the Massachusetts Senate. He was elected to the Massachusetts House of Representatives in 1988 and to the Senate in 1992 by the citizens of First Plymouth and Bristol District. Senator Pacheco is the founding chair of the Standing Senate Committee on Global Warming and Climate Change and the Senate chair of the Joint Committee on State Administration and Regulatory Oversight. He has recently been appointed by the Council of State Governments as chair of the Eastern Regional Conference Energy and Environment Committee. He is also the former Senate President Pro Tem. He supports initiatives to spur job creation and economic growth, preserve the environment and support a clean energy economy, and to protect the rights of veterans, women, and senior citizens. Please join me in welcoming Senator Mark Pacheco.
Thank you so very much, sir. To you and to all the officers and members of this post, to all the veterans that are here today, to my colleague in the legislature, Sue Gifford. I caught the last part of your your remarks, and thank you very much for your service as well. To all of the veterans that are here, and families of veterans that have served our great nation, I'm here to say thank you. Thank you for your service. As Sue said, yes, you can applaud them, absolutely. When I think of our country, every time we stand for the national anthem or sing the Star Spangled Banner and we look at our flag, the flag means just a little different things to each of us as American citizens, but it's a symbol that really brings us all together. And embodied in that symbol, at least I believe, a lot of the rights that we have as citizens of the United States, our freedoms, our democracy, the right to speak out, even to our elected leaders, and tell them just how we feel. And Sue and I have experienced that from time to time. But that's a good thing. That means we live in a democracy. The right to practice whatever religion we choose. Even just the right to assemble as a citizenry, to come together peacefully to protest, is a right that we have here in the United States that, you know, in many places around the globe, you'd be thrown in jail if you did so. So these rights are so precious, and these rights are guaranteed to us in the United States Constitution. That's where they're guaranteed. The rights are delineated in our Constitution. But we can only keep those rights if we have men and women that are willing to protect those freedoms from time to time when they are being challenged, and they are willing to step forward. And generation after generation, we have had women and men that are willing to put on the uniform in whichever branch of government they serve in, and take that oath to the Constitution to protect the freedom and democracy that we all have here in the United States of America. And so that's why here on Veterans Day, we say thank you to all the veterans, because without all of the men and women who have served generation after generation, we just may not have those rights. And there are a lot of times when they've been in a balance. Some people say right now, where our democracy is very fragile. It's a time to focus on and appreciate that very, very special piece of paper that we take for granted. It's on parchment paper. That's the Constitution of the United States that is protected by our veterans. I want to conclude my remarks by saying something that I always want to repeat, something that Susan said a few minutes ago. I am so proud to serve in the legislature and in the Senate, where we take veterans' issues very seriously. Because we don't have a Democratic group of veterans or a Republican group of veterans or an enrolled group of veterans. We have them all. We have the United States veterans. And when they come home from deployment, and when their families are impacted, and when there are issues like health care or mental health care or housing issues, we are a state in the United States that provides more services to veterans than any other state in the United States. And last night I'm very proud to tell you that the Massachusetts Senate met on the American Rescue Plan authorization. And last evening, we authorized more than $500 million to be set aside for veteran services here in the Commonwealth, in addition to what we have authorized in the past, to make sure that the housing needs are met. Many of you here, I know, have been very involved with the Holyoke Soldiers Home and the advocacy to make sure that that housing would continue to be there. And Susan and I have worked on that issue at the state level to make sure we granted the authorization for the Holyoke Soldiers Home, to make sure we have a new facility out in Western Mass. But when we were doing that research, we also found out that there were a lot of housing needs right here in the Southeast and Cape and the islands, from Quincy south. One of the places in our state where the most amount of veterans actually reside, where we need the most help for veterans. And so we put $20 million in last night to make sure we target that population, to make sure that when veterans come home, they actually have a home. They have some assistance, in particular those that may be experiencing post-traumatic stress from their service. You know, with the volunteer service that we have today, all the veterans, you know, can tell you this. When you're deployed once, that's one thing. But today, there are many people that are being deployed 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Tremendous stress, not only on the veteran, but also their family. Because when the veteran serves, their family serves. And so we need to do everything we can to assist the veteran community here in Massachusetts. And we should all be proud as Massachusetts taxpayers that we make sure we have those resources set aside for them. I want to conclude by saying again, thank you to all of our veterans for your service. And I want to thank everyone here for giving me and granting me the honor of being able to represent you in the Massachusetts Senate, working with Susan, working with our colleagues in a bipartisan way to make sure that we fight for our veterans who have fought for all of us. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Representative Gifford and Senator Pacheco. We truly do appreciate and thank you for all of your service to the veterans in this area over the years. Thank you very much. Now we would like to welcome Mr. Paul Gagel forward. Paul is he's been an integral member of the Veterans Council for many, many years. He's been another voice looking out for the veterans throughout the community and making sure that we do everything in our powers to take best care of them throughout the time. So I'd like to welcome Paul here, and he's going to talk to us about the history of Veterans Day.
Good morning. The history of Veterans Day. Veterans Day began November 11th in honor of the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month of 1918. That's when Germany signed an armistice with America for the end of all hostilities of World War I. By order of President Woodrow Wilson, it celebrates the service of all military men and women. And on November 11th, in 1919, President Wilson spoke from the White House saying, "To us in America, the reflections of Armistice Day will be filled with solemn pride in the heroism of those who died in the country's service, and with gratitude for the victory, both because of the thing from which it has freed, and because of the opportunity it has given America to show her sympathy with peace and justice in the Council of Nations." Also, in 1919, President Wilson proclaimed a moment of silence on 11 a.m. before the start of any celebrations. On June 4th, 1926, the U.S. Congress adopted a resolution requesting that President Calvin Coolidge issue an annual proclamation calling for the observance of November 11th for the appropriate ceremonies. Congressional Act 52, Statute 351, approved May 13, 1938, made November 11th each year a legal holiday. The day should be dedicated to the cause of world peace and to be thereafter celebrated and known as Armistice Day. In 1945, World War II veteran Raymond Weeks of Birmingham, Alabama, had the idea to expand Armistice to celebrate all veterans, not just those who died in World War I. Raymond Weeks led a delegation in 1947 to General Dwight Eisenhower, who supported the idea of national veterans. Raymond Weeks led the first national celebration in 1947 in Alabama, and annually until his death in 1985. President Eisenhower signed a bill from Congress into law May 26, 1954. Congress amended that bill on June 1st, 1954, replacing armistice with veterans. It has been known as Veterans Day ever since. In 1978, President Gerald Ford signed into law on the date of November 11th as the permanent day for Veterans Day due to its historical significance. Veterans Day is an important day set aside to honor and show appreciation of all those who have served in the U.S. military in wartime and peacetime, living or deceased. Memorial Day specifically commemorates the men and women who died while in service of the country, making the ultimate sacrifice. So in closing, I'd like to end with these words. Veterans Day is a day to pay tribute to the heroes. This is a chance to say thank you. That must never be missed. Every veteran living and departed deserved the deepest words of gratitude. Peace, freedom, and happy lives. We all have this only because of their heroic deeds. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. I'd like to take a moment. There are a lot of young people in this audience who could have chosen to do something completely different this morning. I don't know if you all know, but there was no school in Wareham today. All right? And these young people before us chose to be here to honor the veterans. So can we give them a round of applause, please? On my left is the Key Club, and in the back is the Junior ROTC, who have been standing this whole time.
Done a good job,
right? They're doing fantastically. Okay, so now, speaking of young people, I would like to introduce someone. At the high school, we have a competition that's sponsored by the Veterans of Foreign Wars. It's called The Voice of Democracy. Today, this year's prompt, it's a different prompt every year. This year's prompt was, America, where do we go from here? Challenging. Right. That's all the students get, and they are required to do a 3 to 5 minute speech. So we could stand here and talk flowery about how great this bastion of hope that we call the United States of America is, but as critical thinkers at Wareham High School and at schools all across the country, we want to be better, and we can be better. So we have a student here that won the contest, and she spoke very eloquently about some things that we do very well, but where we need to go to from here. What changes we need to make, what we need to think about in terms of reprioritizing our efforts. So for some, it may be a little difficult to hear, because this is Veterans Day, and we're here to honor and celebrate the veterans. But I think most veterans, would agree with me where we don't want to sit on our laurels. We want to keep moving forward, and we want to pass the baton on to these young people and make us even better. Agreed?
Yes.
Okay. So we're going to ask Ms. Amaya Anderson to come forward and recite her speech from the Voice of Democracy.
Thank you, Colonel. First, I'd like to thank you all for being here today. While one day certainly isn't enough to thank all of our amazing veterans for all that they have done, I'm certainly glad that we get the opportunity to celebrate them. This speech is something I wrote for Colonel Stanton's government class, and the prompt I was given is, America, where do we go from here? When writing this speech, I knew that I would have to look in depth about the flaws of the American government, despite the amazing things America has also done. So bear with me while I touch on some less than happy topics. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. For those that don't recognize this passage, this is the preamble to the United States Constitution. In this preamble, we declare our goal to form a more perfect union, and we succeeded. We established the Bill of Rights, which ensured our freedoms: freedom of speech, religion, and press, the right to be secure within our own property and not be unreasonably searched, the right to a jury and a speedy trial, and of course, the right to not be exposed to cruel and unusual punishment. The United States has come a long way since declaring our independence. A lot of people think that we are number one, that we are the best country. And while this patriotism is amazing, the reality might be surprising. As of 2011, America is number one. Number one in obesity rates. Number one in divorce rates. Number one in incarceration. Number one in illegal drug use. Number one in car theft. Number one in student loan debt. Number one in national debt. Number one in reported rape, and number one in murder rates. Which becomes even more surprising when you consider that we also have the largest police force in the world and spend 7 times more on our military than any other country. In fact, US military spending is greater than the military spending of China, Russia, Japan, India, and the rest of NATO combined. But that spending does not go directly to our troops, as you might think, but rather to private contractors. Taxes. We all spend thousands of dollars every year on taxes. We don't get to directly decide where that money goes or ensure that it is spent well. And it can be disappointing to give our country a large portion of our income only to get a flat tire from another pothole on the way to work that should have been fixed with those very taxes. In 2018, 16% of American taxes went towards the national debt, while about 31% of American taxes went towards the military and international affairs. In the same year, only about 1.5% was spent on education, on the environment, and on science. Of the taxes spent on the military, only 4.8% actually makes it directly to our troops. A quote from the National Priorities Project states that the average US taxpayer worked 63 days last year to fund military spending. Only 13 directly supported the troops, while 31 directly supported private contractors. That being said, as America plunges further into debt, and more people find themselves living in poverty, it is time to shift our focus. It is time to fund our people, fund our military directly, and especially our veterans, and put our expenditures towards education and communities. Investing in the people gives all Americans the opportunity to educate themselves so that they can make their own money and it may flow back into the economy. An investment in the people is an investment in the future. And finally, of course, I'd like to thank Representative Gifford and Senator Pacheco for their recent work representing our veterans. That is exactly what I had in mind when writing this speech, so hearing that was amazing. And finally, thank you to all of our veterans for your service.
We want to thank you for supporting the voice, the VFW's Voice of Democracy, and for winning the post. We're going to give you this check for $50 and wish you success going to the district level. Thank you.
Okay, so I believe we just saw some very courageous moments, right? To stand before us and talk about some hard facts after some significant research. And I think it's important because we do want to become better as a society. I personally believe that we are still the beacon of hope, right? That there is a reason why so many people from around the world want to come to the United States of America, right? And we talk about that a lot. And we don't want to sit on our laurels, we want to keep moving forward. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Okay, so thank you, Amaya, outstanding. Okay, now, there was one additional contest, and it was among the 8th graders, and it's called the Patriot Pen Contest. And the theme for this one was, how can I be a good American? And the young man who wrote the speech that was selected by a panel of teachers, he is sick, unfortunately, but we have another 8th grader who didn't want to let his classmate down, and he's going to read his speech for him. His name is Mr. Robert Jones. Please come forward. The winner of the Patriot Pen Contest, his name is Caleb Lincoln, and we'll be sure to get him his award. But Robert felt very strongly that we wanted to hear, that he wanted to let everyone hear what Caleb had to say.
Being a good American is a relatively simple, practical, and manageable way to positively impact the condition of our country. Your actions may be the difference between a healthy and unhealthy environment for you and others. But how can we be a good American? It's a relatively vague question that I will do my best to answer in this essay. First, we need to define what it means to be a good American and how to apply to those concepts to the everyday life. I'll be talking about 3 common traits shared between good Americans. Note that there are many good, more than 3 traits, but I consider the 3 I write about as the most fundamental. Respect is the first and would be defined as me as holding a person or people in an equally high regard. It's common knowledge that America is a diverse country, and respect shows appreciation to everyone that from every background. Respect can convey a better sense of connectedness in a community by creating more accepting and welcoming nature. Respect can be displayed in your everyday life with everyone you meet. If everybody demonstrated respect, not only the country, but the world may be much greater than it is now. Patriotism is the next concept and quite similar to respect, the only difference being what we show to it to and how we show it to it. Patriotism is showing respect to the country and those who have fought for it. Patriotism is deeply involved with America's history and usually demonstrated in more formal manners because of this. Ways to show patriotism are standing for the flag, supporting veterans, or voting in an election. An important thing to consider is how patriotism and respect should be demonstrated together, as they are 2 halves of the same whole. Jealousy is the last topic I'll explain, and is much less commonly shown than it should be. Jealousy is defined as by me as giving your time, help, or resources to somebody else without direct benefit to you. Generosity can sometimes be taxing on us, causing it to be harder. To maintain this does not take away from the importance of this trait. Some examples are donating charity, helping an older person cross the road, or paying for somebody's meal. In conclusion, these traits are essential to be a good American and should be practiced by everyone.
I'd like to thank Robert for stepping forward and reading Caleb's essay, and we hope Caleb recovers real soon. So I'm going to give Caleb's award to Colonel Stanton. Thank you.
Okay, Robert, outstanding. Not too bad, right? All right. He was a little nervous. Could you tell? No? Okay. Did a fantastic job. Okay, so I'd like to ask Chaplain Erwin Russell to come forward and issue our benediction for today.
Good morning again, everyone. I'm Erwin L. Tootsie Russell, and chaplain of this post. I want to express a real personal appreciation for the participation amongst at this event. I'd like to also announce the fact that we are here in Massachusetts, South Coast, and we are host to the National Cemetery in Wareham, and they just participated in the Congressional Medal of Honor Jared Monty flag placing event that was done the 6th of November. They will be retrieving, they have 80,000 flags that they placed out at the National Cemetery. And they will be retrieving those flags on the 14th of this month. And anyone that's interested could attend and participate in retrieving the flags from the National Cemetery, because it was a congressional action that Jared Monty's father had to take in order to place flags at the National Cemetery, because this is the only cemetery in the country that doesn't allow above ground recognition. And so he petitioned the Congress to have those flags placed there, but he has to also have them retrieved after the event. And Veterans Day is one of the events that it's done, and Memorial Day is the other event that is done. Also, we have a Veterans Dinner coming up at this post, sponsored by the VFW, where we give a meal to the veterans of the VA hospital in Brockton, and also to those shut-ins amongst the community. And that event is coming place in December. We also are the sponsor of the PFC College James Rhodes Memorial Brunch, which is going to take place in the last week of March. And we'll be recognizing Richard Arruda, Ronnie Bumpus, James Crowley, and Collis Rhodes as residents killed in action from the Vietnam War. And that is Vietnam Veterans Day, the last week of March. I will now say a prayer of thanks, because we are going to partake of some coalition following that, and then I'll do the benediction. Our Heavenly Father, we come to you in this moment because we believe that you are our God and we are your people. And you are the creator and sustainer of life. We acknowledge that every good and perfect gift comes from above, and that all that we have comes from your divine benefactor's hands. We thank you for this food and ask for your blessing upon us as we partake. Teach us to be always mindful of your loving kindness and tender mercy. Amen. Benediction. Our Heavenly Father, we ask that you will dismiss us with your blessing and grant that we may continually experience the calmness and serenity of heart and soul which comes from you. Make us useful servants in all things. Amen. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, once again, thank you all for coming. We're going to conclude today's ceremony with Mr. Steve Ruiz. He's going to sing a rendition of Let There Be Peace on Earth. Following the song, please stay. The auxiliary has prepared some wonderful food to share with us all, and let's just spend some time and break bread. Outside, there is that static display that you're welcome to go check out. Thank you all so much for coming today. See you.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as our Father, brothers all are we. Let me walk with my brother in perfect harmony, and let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow, to take each moment and live each moment with peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
Thank you all for coming. Just give us a minute and we're going to reposition, and key clubbers, if you could go back and help serve. And Commander, you can dismiss your troops.